Now try to observe this one. To have this method impact in our application, you have to call this child value method before our child thread gets start. Okay, before you have to have impact, to have this method impact, you have to call child value method before child thread creates. And how this method is called, how this method is called, you cannot call that one explicitly if you are calling, no use, you will be getting the value which is there in that one. But how to get that one in process means what, this method is only getting called by our get method only, see here, this get method, this is in terms of parent. Okay, now in terms of child thread, okay, in terms of child thread, this is in terms of parent thread. Please repeat this one twice, thrice, then only you will get this one. Okay, otherwise you cannot get. Okay, something very pure basics with very good analysis, with very good advanced level we are moving. Okay, now in child thread area, if you do call this get method, what is going to get happen? Get method thing, it is going to return what? Initial value, otherwise it is going to return what? If you do override initial value, it is going to return what? It is going to return what? Initial value method implementation as the initial value, otherwise it is going to return null. If you do set a value, that is later value is going to get set, so at that time this method is going to return what? Later value. That is very important. Okay, now see here, that is also very important. In our earlier application we have seen that one, right? Now try to observe here. Get method returns, okay, initial value, okay, initial value method implementation. Okay, if, okay, it is going to return initial value method implementation if you don't override child value method. Okay, child value method. And in case there in our parent class, okay, in our parent, if you don't not in parent class, I'm sorry, in case if you don't override this initial value, then what will be the value? Null only. Okay, that's very important here. Okay, try to understand pure logic. See here, in this, if I don't override initial value means, so what will be the thing? If you don't override initial value means null, right? The same thing, that's it. It is going to return what? And also it is going to return what? Null. If initial value method is not overridden. Okay, if initial value method is what? Not overridden. Okay, and now it is going to return what? Child value method implementation if you override it. Okay, if you do override it. I am going to explain this one once again. Try to understand this one from the basic, from the starting onwards. Whatever I have put here is purely a logic which was internal implementation. Okay, that I put here orally. Okay, now see here, if you do call on this inheritable thread local reference child value method, what is going to get happen? In order to see an exact and the proper impact, you have to call this child value method before the child thread starts or child thread creates. Okay, child thread creates. And this method, okay, parent, and in order to make this in order to have proper impact, okay, for having good impact, you have to call this one before child thread gets created. And who is going to call this? Child value method. Of course, internally they are going to call on something. Okay, and for this as an argument they are going to pass what? Parent thread's initial value. That's very important. You can do even check this one. You can print this also. It will giving what? Parent thread's local variable initial value only. Okay, now try to understand this one. Okay, now in order to make parent in order to execute this method by passing a parent thread's initial value, what you have to do? What you have to do here, you have to call get method. That's very important. That's very important. By using get method only in a process, not explicit method calls. In a process you can do call these methods. Okay, see, if the at parent thread area, if you do call get method, and if there is any initial value get set, that implementation is going to be set as what? Initial value. And if you do print this one, oh, it will give that parent thread's initial value. I am sure that we checked, we have done this thing for many times. Okay, now if it is not overriding initial value, means which value? Null will be there. Okay, and see here, after that in the child thread area, if you do call this get method, what will be the thing? If you override child value method, see, child value method implementation will be returning by this get method if you do override it. Otherwise it will give initial value implementation if you method implementation if you don't override child value. Yes, it will give initial value. That thing we have seen in earlier scenario itself. If I don't override child value method, it is going to return what? Parent threads local variable initial value. To get initial value, what you have to do? You have to call what? Initial value method. Please repeat this one. Definitely you will get it. I am not repeating the logic. Logic means you have to make your mind to traverse here, there and there. Okay, you have to catch all those points. It's very important, guys. Okay, nothing great. I present in front of you with a very good great analysis. You have to be careful, you have to suck it. Okay, that depends on you. Okay, now try to understand this one. Now we are going to write the piece of code for this one, just a matter of minutes. Okay, inheritable. Okay, inheritable thread local in. Okay, new inheritable thread local. Okay, I am going to override two methods. What are those? Public object initial value. You can just check without overriding what initial value method also you can do, check that one. We'll see that one, or else you can do trials, no need to worry. But every analysis I have put in front of you. Okay, everything is there, weapons and all in front of you. Thing is, you have to pass, you have to repeat it at single stage. Please, you won't get, I'm sure. Okay, try to repeat them, then only you will be good in it. Okay, initial value. Okay, now return what? Parent. Okay, and put public object child value. And one more thing is what? If you are not, okay, if you are not starting here, see here, you have to call this child value method before child thread gets created, right? In case if you are not calling, that is also very important, guys. Okay, that is also important. If otherwise after second level child, this child value method is going to get impact. No need to worry, please focus only on that one. I don't want to make you guys to give much load to you. Okay, that is also very important. Okay, I mean that also works. After the second level child, this child value method is going to have an impact. Why? Because the parent threads initial value is going to get initialized. Okay, so in order to call that parent threads initial value method, I mean in order to call this child value method, parent threads initial value method has to get executed. Okay, now try to understand this one. Okay, object, now return what? Return what? Child. Okay, now let me take what? This is what? Inner class. Okay, now let me take what? Public static void main. Please try to focus, it's very important. Now the very important things, string array. Okay, now initial value method has been override. SOP of what? L dot get. See here, now the trick here, trick logic, try to understand here. If I don't call this method before the child thread has been created, see here, new thread local. I am sure that I am not here to convince you, I am here to give some new things which you will find in your companies. The same thing I am giving here. Okay, try to understand here. If I don't put this statement, and if I do put this statement here, you are not going to see the output. After second level child only you are going to see. Why? Because try to observe here, in order to have an impact of this child value method, you have to call this method before child thread creates. How to call this child value, it is going to get called after the parent thread's initial value method has been called. That's very important. Okay, why? Because it should get the parent thread's local variable initial value. That's very important. Okay, that's very important. That's the trick. You have to traverse in forward direction and in the same way to get the logic in reverse direction also. Okay, now try to understand. Okay, that's why I'm starting here. Okay, I'll show to you. I'll take only one level child. You just do practice with 3 levels or 4 levels of childs. Okay, you can get this output. I'm sure that if you didn't get, please let me know. Definitely I'll put that code for you. Okay, now it is starting what? A child thread. Okay, now try to understand this piece of code. Okay, now what is that? Public void run. Okay, now SOP of what? L dot get. That's it. Okay, now here this child value method has been called indirectly by using the parent thread's initial value as an argument to the child value method. So child value method has been called before I do start what? Child thread. Getting that logic? Now you are going to see the proper output. No worries. Okay, so what will be here the output? End of this one. So what will be the output here? What is the initial value? I'm parent. Okay, I'm parent. Okay, and what is this one? I'm child. Okay, I'm child. Okay, I will show to you one scenario. I'll put this one here and I will execute. You are going to see 2 times what? I'm parent only. Why? Because internal implementation. Before you do start the child, before you do start the child thread, you have to call the child value. How you can do call that one? By passing. In order to call the child value, it has to get the parent thread's initial value. Okay, that is parent thread's local variable initial value. That's the trick. You are having 3 combinations. If there is any 3 combinations in our analysis, that will break your head. I know that that will eat your brain. Analysis is very important. Logic. Okay, now see here, I'm parent only, but not I'm child. Okay, the same piece of code, just a matter of minute. Try to observe these guys. See friends, the same piece of code, whatever we have written overboard, and please be specific at this child value method. Okay, it has an argument as what? Object O. That is the trick you have to put in your mind, and some of the logic which I have written overboard orally. Okay, now try to see. This is what? The main thread area, right? If I do print this one, what should be the output? I'm parent, right? I'm parent. And after starting the child thread, we are calling what here? One more time. What is that? I'm child should be the output to us, right? Right? Try to observe. That should be the output to us. In the ThreadLocal class only I have written that one. Let me compile this one and let me put what is this class? Inherit. Okay? Just the class name is getting changed. Than that nothing. Please try to understand me. What is that? Inherit. Okay? Inherit. Okay, try to observe. I'm parent, I'm child should be the output. Getting? Now try to observe the same piece of code. I'm going to put this one after starting the child thread. After starting the child thread, it's very important. What is going to get happen? A child thread has been created. It is not setting initial value. It is going to inherit the initial value from whom? Parent thread's local variable initial value. So both the values will be as what? I'm parent. Try to observe, please. I'm parent. Please be specific here. And I said one more thing. If you are not setting that particular, if you are not calling that particular child value before you start the thread, and if you want to call that one explicitly, means you have to call the same thing and you have to create more number of childs. That is, after the second level child or greater than the second level child, you are going to see the impact of that particular child value method. Okay guys, with this we have done with the multi-threading.